Well, hello there and welcome to Run with Jam episode 6. This is the series where you ask the questions in the comment section below and I answer the ones that are more interesting or more upvoted. Today the video probably is coming a little bit late, probably by the night of Monday, Tuesday. Mostly because today I have to try to upload 3 times the same video. The one about Europe and Universalis 4 because YouTube is trolling me time after time and the quality sucks. Um, Finally, it seems I achieved to upload it in a normal state, so now I'm recording and rendering this video. So sorry for the delay, but yeah, that's the way things go. So well, let's get started and let's start with some questions. First one, dear Ram, my question is, what kind of music do you like? Ho, 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 ho. The answer would be everything or mostly everything. Actually, with I can say what I don't like. I think it's better to say the things I don't like. Because it will be easier that way. I like so many different groups, so many different styles of music. I thoroughly, utterly, totally, absolutely hate with a passion Justin Bieber and that kind of singer. Cyrus, though the Spice Girls, that kind of commercial stupid thing that are people without any talent at all going up and just taking advantage of young people who really don't like music. They like the singer or what the singer seems to be portraying because, well, you all know is a pose in those cases. But music I like, oof. I will start by saying that my favorite singer is Brian Adams since I was very young. Um, I do like mostly the 80s and 90s music. Lately, I don't like it as much as I did back then. I'm also quite into the 70s music. Mostly, I'm guessing this is because of my sisters. I mean, I have 2 older sisters, 6 and 7 years older than me. And as I was growing up and starting to listen to music, I was listening to many things they were actually listening as well. So I'm really into Dire Straits, Bon Jovi, Ryan Adams, of course, that kind of music. But I like everything. I love Linkin Park. Well, at least the 2 first albums. Later they turned a little bit weird. They are not bad, but I mean it's not what they used to be. Um, I don't know. I like Metallica. I like Iron Maiden. I like a lot of stuff. But the thing is that later music. I mean, there has been very few things that are very good lately. Um, well, other than maybe Adele, singers like that, but really for me it's the 80s and 90s music mostly. As I told you, favorite singer Brian Adams, without a question. I have actually been to several concerts from him, and he's amazing. Also, well, you too. I like it a lot. Bon Jovi, I like it a lot. Spanish singers. Well, there's a guy called Joaquin Sabina, who's an absolute ass. I mean, in real life, you hear the guy, he's so full of himself, but oh man, he knows how to write. He's not a good singer. I mean, he has this very broken voice, but he's an amazing writer, and he writes some incredible songs. I like Manu Chao, Manu Negra. I like so much stuff. I mean, and if I start mentioning them, I will never ever stop. And yeah, but I guess that's it because the thing is that I have it easier saying the things I hate. I hate Enrique Iglesias. I hate Justin Bieber. I hate the first version of Justin Timberlake, because the later one, the one with Timbaland, actually did very cool stuff. But yeah, I don't like the design singer. For instance, well, I totally, utterly, absolutely hated back in the day Take That, this English group of guys. But then, if you ask me about Robbie Williams, one of the actual singers in that group, when he broke off the group and started doing things on his own, he actually pulled off some very nice work. I'm not going to say I'm a huge fan of Robbie Williams, because I'm not, but I admit he has very cool stuff up. But that's the things. I mean, the cool stuff is the things he did on his own, not the things he did in a group of guys where someone was telling them to dance in sync and doing some weird stuff. Um, I mean, I like real music. I don't like design music or merchandising music. And I guess that's it. That's what I like. Yeah. So let's get it on, and let's see some more questions. Ram, have you played Neverfield, and do you know the Chilean fleet that was over that game, like one of the most big clans? I actually played Neverfield a long time ago. Long time ago. Uh, and I remember some clans, but I don't remember many. I mean, this was maybe 8 years ago. I don't have a lot of memory about that stuff. I mean, it was a pretty much unmemorable game for me. I stayed there for maybe 3 or 4 months and then totally lost interest. I never got really hooked. It was mostly a game I played for a while just to unlock new things, and yeah, I didn't really like the high game, and I left it. So I don't really remember most clans or most things that were going in that game, to be honest. And I now there's a new Navifield 2. I have seen some gameplay videos about it, and I'm so much not trying it at all. Yeah, so yeah, that's it, I guess. So next question. Since War Thunder has plans to put the B-29 Super Fortress in the game, would it make sense to put the B-36 Peacekeeper in also? It was developed around the same time and saw action in Korea. I feel like the B-36 could be effective with its large payload and high surface sailing. Thanks. It would make no sense. I mean, first of all, I think it barely fits the time frame scale of the game. And second of all, the B-36 was a specifically designed bomber for nuclear action, to drop a couple of nukes very far from home and go back home. It wasn't a strategic bomber in the sense of conventional warload. It didn't carry proper bombs. It carried atomic bombs or nuclear bombs. And there are going to be no nukes in the game, so it would make no sense to use a nuclear bomber without nuclear weapons. So no, I don't think it has a place in the game. The B-29 has a place. The B-50, which was the evolution of the B-29, also has a place, because those were conventional bombers and were used for actual carpet bombing over Korea. But the B-36, no. I mean, it makes no sense. It was a nuclear bomber. It was designed to carry bombs, nuclear bombs, and as there are going to be no nukes, there's no sense in putting the bomber into the game. At least that's my take. I mean, yours could be different, but mine is that. Next question. What are your thoughts on the US fighters during World War II, and do you think they are accurate in War Thunder to what they were in World War II? About World War II, I think they had some very good fighters, and that they were very smartly designed for exactly the kind of style that aerial warfare was moving into. At a time where people still were looking into open cockpits and very highly maneuverable planes with long wing loadings, for instance with the Japanese or the Italians, the Americans were actually already designing planes which relied on high speed fighting tactics. I don't think American planes were pretty good. pretty good at the early war. Planes like the P40 was not excellent, not incredible, but got the job done and was very effective when flown the way it should in boom and zoom. There are some others that were pretty disgraceful. So yeah, the P39 was absolute trash. Um, and so everyone recognized it except the Russians. I mean, the Russians, the problem thing was that they were flying the plane always at low altitudes and they didn't care about high altitude performance. But when the first P-39s made it into the United Kingdom, the British tried the plane and it was they hated it so much that in the middle of a war, when they were suffering from very low numbers, they returned the whole load of P-39s to the United States, saying they didn't want those pieces of crap. So the United States sent those planes to the southern West Pacific scenario and used them against the Japanese, and renamed the version as the P-400. And there was a running joke back then between the American pilots about what was a P-400, and they say that a P-400 is a P-40 with a zero in his back. It was so useless. That one had a 20mm span instead of the 37mm, which I think it was a cool change, because the 37 or small wheel cannon for air combat was pretty much worthless. The problem with the plane was that it simply was bad. It was horrible. Had horrific stability problems. It couldn't climb over 3,000 meters without dropping its performance to hell, and yeah, it was very limited. Even more against zeros. It still got the job done, but it was an awful fighter. Later on, the late war fighters P-47, P-51, P-38, I think they were very good, very good. And I think they are properly represented in War Thunder. I'm not saying the flight models are perfect, because at the moment no flight model in War Thunder is accurate, for a simple reason that compression is not in the game, and if you don't have aerodynamic and sound compression in the game, the planes are going to behave nothing like they do in real life. So no flight model is accurate in the game right now, period. But I do think they are well portrayed. If you fly them the way you should fly American fighters, you will have a lot of success, and you will get a lot of kills, and they will kill you very few times. So I think back in the day they were among the best fighters in the world, and now in the game, in War Thunder, they still are some of the best players in the game. So yeah, those are my thoughts at least. So yeah, that's it. Now next question. Hey Ram, what do you think the most overhyped planes of World War II are? Also, when are you visiting Greece? Well, when I have the money, or when I have the money and I can spend it. Currently, I can't. Overhyped planes of World War II: Spitfire, P-51. And let me be clear about this. I don't say those planes were bad, particularly the P-51. The P-51 was an excellent plane. Excellent, really. It was amazing. It was an incredible consumer. It had incredible range, but I think modern documentaries have done the plane a very weak favor, because now everyone looks at those and thinks the P-51 should do everything and should do everything very nicely. People say the P-51 sucks in the game because it doesn't climb well, it doesn't turn well, and they say it sucks. Well, actually it doesn't. I mean, the plane in real life didn't climb very well and didn't turn very well. So, but still was a very good fighter. How? In boom and zoom. The problem is that people don't fly it properly and they think it sucks. And that's only because they are used to see online propaganda. There's no other way to put it. I mean, whoever says any dogfights chapters is in for propaganda. It's nothing else. I mean, it's just putting some planes over the top when I mean, they were very good, but they weren't very good at everything. I mean, all planes had weak points and all planes had strengths. But the problem was that they make some planes seem like if they were unbeatable things of the sky that nothing could catch them, and they were excellent for everything, and it was not the case. And as a result, the P-51 is overhyped. There's also, I mean, it's a commonplace for everyone to say that the P-51 destroyed the Luftwaffe, and that's not actually the truth. The Luftwaffe was actually not destroyed, but got its back broken in very early 1944 during the Big Week raids. The Big Week was a series of bombings of the 8th Air Force on key places of the German aeronautic industry. Very important places. They knew that if they attacked, it would result in very strong answers from the Luftwaffe. What they wanted was to bring them up for a fight and kill them. Force the Luftwaffe to fight a massive air battle and to treat them, to kill them, and to destroy them. And it worked. Actually, it worked. During those bombings, American losses were horrific. Really, they lost a lot of bombers, a lot of fighters. Losses were very high, but still they achieved to kill a lot of German aces. They brought down a lot of German fighters, and while German fighters could be replaced, pilots couldn't. Pilots with thousands of hours of experience of air combat. They killed a lot of German fighters and fighter pilots, and afterwards, after those attacks, the Luftwaffe never fought up again as they did before. The Luftwaffe wasn't destroyed as a fighting unit, but its back was broken. Its teeth were no more. They had broken its back. The Americans broke the back of the Luftwaffe in those strikes. When that happened, the P-51 was a side note in the American forces. There were some P-51Bs, the V version of the D, the V, that allowed for very long escort ranges and stuff. But the planes that got most of the kills back then were the P-38 and mostly by a wide difference, the P-47. The P-47 was a plane that broke the Luftwaffe's back, not the P-51. The P-51D has a huge renown for destroying a lot of German fighters, but the problem is that when the P-51D arrived, which was actually already in August 1944, the Luftwaffe was no more, was destroyed, it was testimonial. Most of the pilots were kids with no experience that were going up in the sky and were easy to shoot down. I mean, there are records of American fighter pilots explaining how the plane they had in front, the German plane they had in front, the pilot simply didn't know how to keep it steady in a single line. I mean, in a straight line. They didn't know even how to counteract torque with the rudder. They were so noobs. And of course, in that scenario, the P-51 was going to kill a lot of enemies. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the quality of the enemy was no more. But the plane that was there since the very beginning of the bomber offensive, that took the brunt of the load of the American offensive over Germany, was the P-47. And I think that's the plane, that's the fighter that actually won the war for the Americans, not the P-51. The P-51, of course, when it came, simply allowed the bombers to reach where they couldn't reach before, which is a huge asset, of course. But I do think the P-47 was better, to be honest. At least I think the P-47 achieved more than what the P-51 did. It's my personal opinion, of course. But yeah, I think the plane is overhyped mostly because of dogfights and that kind of shows, which are nothing but propaganda and led people to think that the plane was so good in everything that it had no opposition. Let's face it, the P-51 was an excellent machine, but it wasn't perfect. It had weak spots, as all planes back in the era did. And another overhyped plane, the Spitfire. People insist that I hate the Spitfire. I don't. I do think it's a cool plane. You have seen me flying the Spitfires. The problem is again overhyping. People simply think that as it was cool and beautiful and was nice to see, and it was a very competent fighter. I'm not going to deny it. It was a very good fighter, but he simply was not adept to the kind of style of fighting that was the norm in the late war. Late war, you could see P-47s, P-51s, Focus 190s, planes that were heavy, excellent at dives and zooms, high speed, tactics and maneuvering and fighting, and the Spitfire simply couldn't keep up with that. It was a very light plane, very high power loading, it climbed very good, and it was very good at turning, but the problem is that turning was meaningless in the new combat, and it was a trend that never stopped. I mean, there's a reason why jets were the end game in World War II, let's call it this way. There's a reason why the Me-262 was so feared. Speed. There was nothing better for a fighter pilot than having a lot of speed available to him and unmatched diving and zooming abilities. Those were the most valuable qualities for a fighter plane. After the war, we moved to Korea, and we have the MiG-19, the F-86. After Korea, we have the MiG-21 Match 2, the Starfighter, the F-104, the American fighter, Match 2. I mean, the trend was towards faster planes and heck to hell with maneuverability. Maneuverability didn't matter. What mattered was speed, dive, and zoom. And that's where the success of a design resided. That's why the BF-109 lost most of its edge by the end of the war. It was limited in the same way as the Spitfire was. It was a lightweight, it climbed very well, but it couldn't compete in boom and zoom and high speed tactics. And the Spitfire is exactly the same. People insisted in expecting the same thing, propaganda. People insist that it should be the amazing non plus ultra plane, and it actually was very limited. It was very good. It did the job. It got the job done, more or less. But let's face it, it simply wasn't good for what late war air fighting was. The Tempest was a much better fighter than the Spitfire, for instance. Much better than any mark of the Spitfire ever was. So yeah, that's two of the planes that I think they are very overhyped. And I think the Zero also was overhyped. I mean, the Zero got an invincibility halo around it at the early Pacific War. But as soon as they started meeting some Wildcats, F4Fs, and let's face it, the F4F wasn't the best fighter around, they couldn't keep air superiority. The A6M and the Wildcat were very close matches, and let's face it, the Wildcat, as I said, wasn't the best fighter around, so the Zero wasn't the best fighter around. It has a lot of hype around, but I guess in a way is to be expected because it was such a huge surprise for the Americans. But the Zero actually got its legend and its fame killing Brewster Buffaloes, Fokker 21s, and third-rate stuff in the Dutch Eastern Indies in the first pushes of the war. And they were going against, as I said, third-rate class iron. They were beating crap. But the thing is, it was such a psychological hit for the Allied planes that didn't expect that some Asian race had pulled off a pretty good fighter that really it got a legend. I don't think the actual quality of the design warrants. That's my take, at least. So yeah, that's it for this question. Pretty long answer. Let's move on to the next one. Rankam, can I add you on Skype? I promise not to bother you. No, Skype is for personal for personal uses, and I'm keeping it clean from any of these word. I mean, I'm not messing YouTube into my Skype. Skype is for personal use, and it's going to remain it that way. Next question: what's your favorite model plane? F-14 Tomcat. And there's something about that plane that simply always got me hooked. Maybe there's the the wing, the variable angle wing that, and the overall looks. It was a hell of a plane. I loved it. Next question: are you interested in airliners? Airbus? No, actually no. I mean, flying airliners is to take off, climb to a given altitude, point your nose at the next node in the direction you're going. When you reach the node, change the heading to the next node in sequence, keeping your altitude at the same place. I mean, it's so boring. It's boring, really. I don't know. I have flown, of course, all the flight simulator from Microprose, and I can tell you, yeah, after I got the challenges done and the courses done, I simply didn't fly them anymore because there was no incentive. I mean, it was simply flying around, not doing any particular stuff. So no, I'm not really into that kind of flying. But yeah, well, I guess it's cool. Next question. Ram, do you think joystick is worthwhile in HB? I own one. I use it always for HB, but I'm beginning to think it's ineffective. Is there a real advantage for joystick users? Of course, yeah, there is. You don't have an instructor to deal with. You have not an instructor limiting your plane. Instructor actually prevents your plane from achieving its top maneuverability, and by a wide margin. With a joystick, you can ride the stall. You can come much closer to the edge, to the top. You can extract so much from your plane. The problem with joystick is that it's much harder to aim, much harder, and as a result, what you gain in maneuverability, you lose in accuracy. But it's all about getting used to it. I think that a properly set up joystick is superior to keyboard and mouse in War Thunder. Without a question, I do think it's that way. Yeah. Next question. Would you like to meet Jingles? Oh well, of course. Yes, I would. In person, I guess you mean. Yeah. I mean, he's such a cool guy. He's so funny. He's got these looks of super nice guy, and he likes the same stuff that I do. I mean, this is the kind of guy who goes to a museum and starts drooling, and I'm exactly the same way. So we will get along very well with each other. Yeah, I would like to meet him a lot. Ram, do you play Battlefield? No, I don't. I did back when Battlefield 3 was released. I actually got hooked to Battlefield series with Bad Company 2, and I think that was a hell of a game. I had so much fun playing that game. It was so funny. I mean, it was a collection of fun stuff, one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. But Battlefield 3 was never it for me. I mean, it was so serious. It lost the edge of the funny things that happened on Battlefield Bad Company 2 all the time. And I don't know what's with Battlefield 3, but never got me hooked. And I'm not going to get Battlefield 4. It's going to be a loss of time for me because I'm not going to play it. Seeing that it's going to be an evolved version of Battlefield 3, and Battlefield 3 I didn't really like. Besides the fact that I actually kind of suck at first-person shooters, but that's beside the point. The thing is, I had a lot of fun on Battlefield Bad Company 2, but Battlefield 3 never. I mean, it's a better game. Technically, from the design point, from a lot of different views, but I don't know what's it with Battlefield Bad Company 2, but it was so better than Battlefield 3. I really miss Battlefield Bad Company 2. Yeah. And finally, what are your favorite films and TV shows? I don't like TV, really. I don't. Favorite movies? Oh, wow. I love superhero movies. I like Iron Man. Iron Man 1. Iron Man 2 was, yeah, and I don't really like Iron Man 3, to be honest. The Batman trilogy, I love. I totally love. The work that Christopher Nolan did with Batman was amazing. Um, I like war, of course, war movies, but those without the cliches. I mean, you put me in front of a screen seeing Saving Private Ryan, and for the first 1 hour and a half, I'm going to be with my jaw open, drooling all around the place. But when you start seeing the kind of stuff of like the German soldier that got spared and then comes back to kill the enemy, and I mean, so many cliches is not. No. However, you get favorite TV show, Band of Brothers. And now we are at it. I get another idea for another one I'm going to name, but Band of Brothers. That show is so epic in so many different ways. So incredible acting, so incredible writing from the screenplayers, or well, whatever is said. So many good writing, so many good acting. The fact that it's actually portraying true things that happen in reality. You get to see the neat grit version of war that really, until maybe 15 years ago, no one ever dared to portray in a TV show. I mean, if you see all war movies like, I don't know, um, Target Birmania, I still remember that one. That was one with Errol Flynn back in the 1940s, and that was simply really. It seemed. I mean, there were propaganda films. They were for people to get people in the army. It made a sense not to show how horrible war is. But I think that, I mean, with Band of Brothers, you don't only to get attached to the characters because you are following them from the very beginning when they were training in in the United States. You get to follow them all through the war and all through their experience and how horrible war is and how demanding, how physically demanding it is, and how psychologically demanding it is. There's one image in one of the later chapters of Malarkey, which is one of the sergeants in the company. Um, and he's lost two of his best friends. Not lost because they are not dead, but they were injured and they are not there anymore. They were very badly wounded and they were retired from the front. And he lost a further one because he actually was sent back to the United States. So all his friends, his close friends in the company, were gone, and he was in the middle of this shitty war which was dragging on with no sense because the Germans were going to lose. And you can see one scene, one moment when you see he's so. I mean, he's so close to the edge. And this is a guy you have seen from the beginning of the series, and you see at the beginning and all through the episodes how full of life he is, how he's a cocky character, and then you see how it gets drained all through the stages until the end when he's so close to the break point that he gets called off a patrol duty because he simply can't stand it anymore. Is that one? Band of Brothers, when I have kids, is one of the shows they are going to see. There's no way around that. They are going to see that one. I know it's going to be a very hard thing to see because, I mean, kids shouldn't be exposed to blood and that kind of stuff, but it teaches so many things on very different scales, from how horrible war is and how amazing the bond of friendship and life-lasting. I mean, people who fought that war still today, the survivors, the vets of those battles, still get together every year, and they are still bonded together. There are some things that you never learn until you are pushed to the edge along some other guys, and you get to understand what friendship is, and what trust involves. You are trusting in the other guy to save your ass. So that's one they are going to see. My kids are going to see Band of Brothers. Saving Private Ryan? No. But Band of Brothers they will see. And there's another one that they will see. Back in the 80s, I mean, there was this sensation that science was going over the roof and no one else could follow it. But then one guy, one astrophysic, came into the media and put up an amazing work of love about human history, human technology, and the trip we as humankind are making in the universe. And the trip the universe is making on its own since the very beginning. The guy was named Carl Sagan, and his show was called Cosmos. And there are a lot of things in Cosmos that today we know they are not true, or they are different than how he explained them. But of course, that was in the early 80s. Of course, in 30 years, these physics have evolved a lot. But the way he explains the history of science for humankind, the sense of perspective that gives you, I mean, you are nothing but a shining star that blazes for maybe 80 years in a cosmos that's 15,000 million years old. You are the product of so many things. I mean, you are son of stars, you are made of stardust. There are some things he said that somehow have shaped my approach to life. Because if you see things in perspective, your problem seems like nothing. You are in a single individual that lasts only for maybe 80, 100 years at the top, who's sitting in a very small piece of land on a very small planet of a second-rate sun of a middle-class galaxy in a huge universe. Really, if you put the things on scale, you realize that your average day-to-day problems are nothing. And you feel grateful for being alive. Because you realize that whatever the reason is, if there's a God, if there's not, the thing is that you're alive. I mean, 15,000 million years of evolution and cosmic happenings have resulted in you existing. And that's an incredible feeling. That's an amazing thought. I mean, how many things have happened? I mean, maybe back 1 million years ago, maybe if the wind had blown a different way, you wouldn't be here. It's that way. That's how things go. And that's a reconforting thought, because that means that you are here. You have the chance to make a difference. You have a chance to enjoy life. And Cosmos gave that to me. And that's something I will show my kids. Of course, probably much earlier than Band of Brothers, because you can see that a lot before than a lot of people killing each other. But yeah, that's my second. That's my take. That's a favorite of mine as well. So yeah, if I had to pick 2 TV shows that I would show my kids, Band of Brothers and Cosmos. And lately I heard that the widow of Carl Sagan is producing a new version of Cosmos. I don't know how that's going to work, because Cosmos was Carl Sagan. That's one of the guys I most admire. For many different things. He was a guy who worked for NASA, who was part of the team that was responsible for the Voyager missions. The Voyager are the probes that are actually out of the solar system already. Um, he had a passion for science, for history, for the human being. In fact, he was so passionate about it, and he was the first scientific to go into the media and to explain science to people in very easy to understand terms. He actually helped a lot of people to understand physics, to understand how we have reached to be what we are now. And I don't know. I simply is one of my idols. Is one of my legendary figures I would love to meet. Sadly, he died some years ago from cancer, very early, very young. Very young. He was 56, I think. But he could have been here for much, much longer. But sadly, he's gone. But yeah, that's one of the guys I admire the most. But well, yeah, I guess that's it. This has dragged for a long while now, and I'm guessing that this is enough for this Rum with Yam. No, Yam with Rum, sorry. Remember to put up your questions down below in the comment section, to upvote those questions you want to see answered. And, well, I hope you had fun listening to me rambling about things. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching, and see you later.